Welcome to Catherine Biroy Show. I'm very happy today because one of the people who actually supported me when I was just a baby and I was making my first steps is now here with me. Known as America's Joy Magnet, Shari Alyse is the author of international bestseller Love Yourself Happy, TEDx and international speaker and joy expert. At 7 years old, Shari found herself having used her voice on a witness stand to testify against the man who had abused her. She now uses her voice to speak around the world on self-worth, thriving after trauma, self-love, and reclaiming your joy. Shari is the former co-founder of one of the first holistic wellness communities and directories, host of multiple TV and radio shows. She has been featured in numerous media outlets, including Good Day LA, Good Day Philadelphia, and a regular contributor on Good Morning Washington and Good Morning Good Day Rochester. Obviously, English is not my native language, but I'm holding on. She has been featured in Thrive Global, Women's Business Daily, Huffington Post, Authority Magazine, Daily OM, Only Good TV, and more. She believes that in the radical acceptance of ourselves, we truly can live a joy-filled life. I'm so happy to have you here, Shari. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Sorry about having to read all that.
So complicated words.
Next time I'll just say numerous media outlets and we'll be done with
No,
that.
I wanted to mention this because thanks to you, I'm now part of one of the programs and I'm learning a lot about media and all of that. And again, we met again after so long time. And I would like for you to share your story a little bit, if you would like so.
Sure. How far back would you like me to go? Just to, I mean,
as
you're talking
far
about like
as
my
you
story.
feel, as far as you feel.
So I was born in, no, I'm just kidding.
Once upon a time.
Yeah. No, I mean, I guess I always start with, what really changed the trajectory of my life. And you mentioned it, and being on a witness stand. And that's really where I feel like my life took a turn. Although, of course, at a young age of 7, I didn't really understand that that's what was happening. I just knew this was part of my world. I knew that people weren't talking about it, that it wasn't, it was 1981. So sexual abuse, the Me Too movement, all of that, there was no one using their voice speaking about this. So it was something that I had to deal with in private, really. And in private, I mean in my own mind. I was abused by a stranger. And there was something inside of me that told me to share about it, even though like a lot of survivors were told, I was told that if I told, my family would be killed, that I would be hurt. But there was something within me that just said, share. And so I told my sister, and my mom had sensed that something was wrong when I got home. And she basically eavesdropped on me speaking to my sister and telling my sister about what had happened. And long story short, we called the police and everything. And I was called to, of course, testify against this man. And at that young age, having to use my voice was one of the most terrifying things that you could ever imagine, having to sit in front of a courtroom and name parts of your body in front of a room full of strangers, having to point out this man in front of me, what he's wearing, as well as having the defense attorneys felt like interrogation to why didn't I do more? So that experience in and of itself, beyond the abuse, but in the courtroom, really changed everything for me. It had me feel defensive my whole life. It had me feel like that I had to say and do the right thing in all of my relationships and all of my life, that I was going to get in trouble if I didn't. So this people pleaser was born. A person that, always wanted to say and do the right thing so I wouldn't get in trouble. And what ended up happening, for a lot of people who have experienced abuse, we end up having unhealthy relationships, whether with others, and mostly for me, it was with myself. So really my journey began then, and really uncovering, disconnecting from myself at a young age, and then the journey back to finding myself and my joy.
And you know, I didn't know this part of your story when I joined one of the wellness directories that you co-founded, and I met you there for the first time. And as I mentioned you before we started this conversation, you were the light for me.
Mhm.
And you were one of the people, at first people who I saw that they are doing something to make this world really a better place. And you supported me, even not knowing me back then. And I will never forget that. So, you know, you affected a lot more lives than I think that you might be aware. And
Mhm.
that was 2015, a long, long time ago. And being so brave and courageous to share this, what you just shared, is even more powerful.
Mhm.
So you changed my life. You gave me the strength to step up because I was just starting out and I didn't know what I'm doing. And although you maybe didn't know that directly, indirectly, you and the other people from that space were actually there for me at that time. So I want to thank you from the core of my heart, and I wanted to share this. It's very nice that I shared it publicly before I told you, right? How convenient.
Yeah. You're like, you're trying to
Are
like
you
break me down here.
feeling well?
Yeah, but no, it's, I mean, thank you. I think when you know, because you do this every day, like you're always helping people and your mission is really heart based. And so has mine been for years. Like, and so you don't always know the people that you're affecting, and you don't always know because not everybody tells you that, but you just keep
Exactly.
showing up no matter how tired you
Exactly.
are, no matter how unwell at times you are, because it's in your heart. And so that's why I'm so emotional as you share that, because I didn't, you know, until you said like, know that that's how you felt. I saw you. I was fumbling my way too. Like we were, you know, this community was a startup. You know, we were fumbling our way
I
too,
know.
but we just wanted to support people who had a mission to help change the world. And there you were doing that, wanting to do that. And I wanted to help.
Yeah, and this is how things go. Very like, you know, um I don't even know how to say that, but I believe that and nothing happens without a reason.
Mhm.
And for you to share this part of the story which you shared now, and I heard it first time when I was watching your TEDx talk, really deeply touched my heart. And I think it takes a lot of courage for that, but especially because you completely transformed your life.
Yeah.
And now you are America's Joy Magnet. So, what? How that happened?
I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out.
What does joy mean to you?
Joy for me is the full connection to ourselves.
Mm,
So, and what I mean by that is the full acceptance. I light up, and the work that I've done with people is really when we are fully aligned with our truth.
mhm,
So whether that looks like, you know, feeling crappy one day and owning it, not feeling super positive and being okay with that, feeling anger, feeling compassion, feeling joy, whatever that is. Joy is when we are fully connected to ourselves and being okay with all of our
mm,
imperfections.
mm,
Um, and it took me years to figure that out because I was so disconnected from myself because of the trauma that happened at a young age. Um, but the more and more that I began to accept all parts of me, which means all human emotions, the more and more I felt joy rising. And so when I do work with people and I help people and I connect them back to their truth, they begin to feel that same joy.
it's so beautiful. I never looked at it that way. Again, you completely shifted the perception. But
Well, think about
truly,
children. I mean, think
yeah,
about, I think the reason why, my belief is the reason why children feel joy so much is because they're just being themselves, right? Like we were just being
exactly.
ourselves, the freedom, the creativity, without the worries of anything. And so it's connecting back to those parts of ourselves.
Mm, yeah, that's very powerful. And how we can access that joy.
So is through the connection, and connection for me, and it just looks like self-awareness. I mean, you can connect with yourself through, like some people do, through meditation. It could be just through, allowing yourself to feel what you feel. It's all through connection, connecting to yourself, and not what we all do, which is a lot of disconnection, whether it's, on social media all the time, the endless scrolling, the being distracted, the overworking. Not that there's anything, I know that we're all professionals, but not that there's anything wrong with working. But when you use it as a distraction from feeling, when you use it as a distraction from not being still and sitting with yourself, that is a form of disconnection. Just like even people that work out, like there are people that work out for hours and hours at the gym, but then if they really stopped, there'd be a lot of stuff going on. So we access joy through connecting, through slowing down, through stillness.
And if people just realize, actually, that's the simplest thing they can do, just be themselves. Usually we take on different identities, different masks and all of that, but then you have to remember things when you are completely honest, and when you are basing everything on your story, and when you're just being yourself. And it's simple. You don't have to remember anything.
It's true.
Who you are,
right? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've all done that, and we show up in certain ways with certain roles because society has made us feel that we have to. And even from childhood, we got rewarded for doing what our parents wanted us to do, or teachers, or society. So we learn to show up as other people want us to. So we go through life almost doing that same thing. So yeah, it's a lot easier when you're yourself.
Yeah, I mean, really, there is nothing else. If you don't feel well, just don't. If you feel good, just feel good.
And you're frustrated, and you don't feel so positive today. That's okay. But the more that we struggle with accepting how we feel, the longer we sit in that struggle and we suffer.
Exactly.
So I've learned to just be like, oh, okay, compassion, self-compassion for me is everything. And that's really what I share with a lot of people too. I feel like it's the foundation for more joy, for a well-lived life.
So everything brings us back to our source, to ourself, to self-love, right?
Yeah. Self-love is the foundation for joy.
Exactly. What is that defining moment that actually changed the outlook when you look at life?
Well, it's interesting because people have asked me over the years what that defining moment is. And I always first say it was a bunch of small moments, right? It was a bunch of breadcrumbs along the way that all led me to, I guess, would be the big moment, which for me was after, and I talked about it in my TEDx talk, was about this big trip to Italy. I had my heart broken, and by my current fiance. We got back together, spoiler alert. But I had, we had this big dream together, and long story short, he broke my heart, and I was like, well, I don't know what else to do. He was supposed to move out with me. And so I decided to sell everything I owned. I quit my job at that time of 14 years. And I took off to Italy for the summer. I had this dream of writing a book. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to heal my heart. I'm going to spend some time with me, learning how to love me. And I took off for 3 months. And during those 3 months were life changing for me, because it was the first time that I had ever really slowed down. And as I just mentioned, that stillness and that quiet allowed me to reconnect back to myself. And there was this moment that I had, and I joke about it because I'm Jewish, but I found that I love churches. I was in churches all the time in Italy, just walking through them. And I talk about it in my book, so I don't want to go into all of it. But I had this moment where I literally heard the voice. For some, it's God, higher power source, that said to me out of nowhere. It was one of my last days in Italy. And I heard the words, "You weren't supposed to leave her. You were supposed to love her." And up until that point, leaving, like I told you, I disconnected from that day on the witness stand, from that little girl who was so hurt and there was so much pain, that I left her that day. And I had another experience, like weird experience in Sedona, Arizona, for anyone who's ever been there, and where my 7-year-old self showed up, and people would be like, "You're crazy," and I would have said the same thing. But I left her that day too. So in that moment, in that church, what I realized is that I had disconnected from her, and so that began my journey back to really spending time with me, getting to know me, getting to heal that little girl within, giving her what she needed. And in that journey back to myself is where I found joy.
Mic drop. I was watching your TEDx talk on YouTube, and that sentence really, really touched my heart very deeply, because I lived something similar. And I realized that I'm completely out of my body, and that I'm always somewhere else. And that is because of the experiences I had when I was a child. So that sentence just took my heart back to its place, and basically, reconnected me to that little girl that I was. And that everything is fine. And if I look myself now and back then, it was a hell of a journey, but it was an amazing journey. And I'm very grateful for all the experiences. I think I left a comment about that sentence, and you're about to be quoted.
Okay.
That's deep. That's deep. Now we're going to have a little bit of fun.
Okay.
I'm going to put a little bit of pressure, of course, and I will ask you a few very quick questions. You have like 10 seconds to answer to me, and then you will hear. Yeah.
You're asking an overthinker not to think.
Exactly. I'm the one. But it's going to be simple. What's your favorite book?
Conversations with God.
My one of my favorites too. Amazing. Yeah. What do you like to do at your spare time?
Hike. I love to take nature walks.
Oh, yeah.
And go to the movies.
That's similar too. What would you ask yourself if you were me now?
Oh,
this just came. I didn't plan this.
Yeah, no. I think the question that would come, what came to first to mind is, are you happy?
And?
In moments. But I am filled with joy.
Again, very deep.
Yeah, well, happiness depends on things, and and sometimes your career is not going well, or sometimes your relationships aren't well, and so happiness is very transitory, but joy doesn't go anywhere. It's always there.
And you have that beautiful light all around you, and it's truly, as you said, when we walk our talk, we are standing in our truth. It's very simple. Would you like to share a little bit about your book and where people can find you, how they can reach out to you?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I love my book. And that's
I know.
It was my life poured into, it's my heart poured out. And it's called Love Yourself Happy, A Journey Back to You. And it talks a lot about the trip to Italy, but really just the journey back of trying to find happiness in everyone and everything, and my unhealthy relationships, and trying to stuff down the relationship that I had with food, like using that to ultimately come back to myself. And it's set up as a road trip for people. So there's detours, there's rest stops, and there's fuel ups, and it's available. So it's just really the journey of coming home to ourselves, and not only being okay with being happy, but also, as I said, being sad, being frustrated, being ourselves. It's available on Amazon and anywhere books are sold online. And then everyone can find me. I'm all over social media under Shari Alyse, or you could just go straight to my website, which is also sharyalyse.com.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I truly, truly am happy to have you here, and joyful, and everything else, as you already noticed. Thank you so much for being my guest. I truly enjoyed, and I hope you did too.
I did. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Ciao.
Ciao.